Welcome to another explainer. Today, we're literally going back to middle school. I recently came across a really fascinating lesson plan from the SDO Digo City's Safe Learners program for 8th graders. And honestly, the way it approaches risk assessment is surprisingly profound. Whether you're a student, an educator, or just someone interested in how we teach young minds to navigate the world safely, there is a lot to unpack here. So let's jump right in.
Here's our quick roadmap for today. We're going to cover 5 main areas: the prevention mindset, the 4-step safety process, spotting common school risks, asking the right questions, and finally, reporting to trusted adults.
All right, starting us off, Section 1, the prevention mindset.
So, right off the bat, the curriculum establishes a really strong philosophical foundation. For these 8th graders, risk assessment is defined in a very specific, deliberate way. It's not about fighting danger or, learning physical self-defense. Instead, it's framed as a crucial prevention skill. The main objective here is to build a habit where you learn to notice warning signs early. You're identifying possible harm right before making a decision. Ultimately, it's about training the brain to just pause. You'll notice a really stark contrast here. The teacher notes explicitly state that this lesson does not train learners to confront danger or to fight. And that's a massive distinction, right? The curriculum shifts the student away from the idea of just reacting to accidents after the fact and guides them toward preventing harm before problems grow. It completely reframes safety. It goes from being this panicked emergency response to being a daily, thoughtful practice. In the actual SDO Digo City lesson guide, you can see exactly how this is structured in practice. It's a targeted 30-minute lesson built to establish these safe habits right from the opening routine. The teacher kicks off the class by recapping that responsible choices build a safe school community. This immediately sets a tone of collective responsibility, right before they move into an energetic activity designed to get the kids thinking on their feet. Moving right along to Section 2, the 4-step safety process. So this foundational mindset builds into a highly practical toolkit. The whole thing anchors on a specific 4-step process taught by a character named Captain Safe. When faced with a tricky situation, students learn they must first pause, literally stop themselves from a knee-jerk reaction. Second, they observe to get more info about their surroundings. Third, they think about the possible consequences. And only then, as the 4th step, do they act safely. It essentially acts as a brilliant mental speed bump for teenage impulses. Okay, Section 3, spotting common school risks. To make these abstract steps super concrete, the lesson uses a relatable story featuring characters like Luna and Ben, who are just navigating a somewhat chaotic school day. I love how it juxtaposes classic physical hazards, like a wet hallway or a loose computer wire, against the very modern 21st century hazard of an angry message in a group chat. In the story, Ben initially wants to shout at people in the chat, but he uses the framework. He pauses, observes, thinks, and chooses a respectful, safe response instead. It's a perfect example of how the framework applies perfectly to both physical and digital environments. Which brings us to Section 4, asking the right questions. Now, it's one thing to tell a teenager to think, but what exactly should they think about? To execute that 4-step process, Captain Safe gives the students 4 specific questions. The very first one is simply, what could go wrong? This immediately forces the learner to evaluate how a situation might escalate. Asking this question literally flips a switch in the brain, moving it from passive observation to active analysis. They aren't just staring at a loose wire anymore. They're actively projecting what happens if someone trips or if it sparks. They are identifying the accident before it even becomes reality. The second question is, who might be harmed? And this is such a brilliant addition because it builds immediate empathy and situational awareness. It reminds these 8th graders that they don't live in a bubble. Their choices, or even their lack of action, like walking past a wet floor and saying nothing, directly impact the broader school community. It prompts them to consider their classmates, their teachers, or themselves, cementing the idea that safety is a shared asset. Question 3 is, what can I safely do? This is all about empowering the student to take agency without putting themselves in the line of fire. For example, when the character Ira saw a classmate running with scissors, her first instinct was to aggressively grab them away. But using the framework, the students learned to formulate a constructive, non-confrontational response. Instead of going rogue, they chose a preventive, respectful action, calmly reminding the student to walk. It diffuses the tension rather than fueling it. And that leaves the final question, which is the ultimate safety net for any teen. Who should I inform? This bridges perfectly into our final concept. It helps students realize, hey, you don't have to carry the burden of safety all by yourself. Identifying the right trusted person, whether that's a teacher for the running student or the maintenance office for the loose wire, is a core part of actually resolving the risk. And that leads us to Section 5, Reporting to Trusted Adults. You know, this lesson goes out of its way to normalize asking for help. In the story processing matrix, the teacher specifically asks the class, why did Captain Safe tell them not to solve every concern by themselves? The ingrained response they're looking for is that some concerns absolutely require help from trusted adults to ensure everyone stays safe and the problem gets handled the right way. Relying on adults prevents learners from handling real danger alone and ensures professional management of issues. But most importantly, it completely reframes the concept of reporting. Asking for help becomes a sign of maturity and responsibility, not a sign of weakness, and definitely not just tattling. It reinforces that reporting is 100% the right choice when a concern might harm someone. This single quote from Captain Safe basically sums up the entire mission of the lesson. It ties together everything we've explored in this explainer today about building a proactive safety culture. It's not about fear. It's about awareness, making responsible choices, and knowing when to make a proper report. To wrap things up, this lesson actually features a home connection assignment for the students. I want to take a page right out of that playbook and leave you with this question to practice your own risk assessment today. Take a look around your environment. Identify just one safety risk in your own home right now. What is a preventative action you can take to resolve it that doesn't blame, scare, or endanger anyone? Just remember, pause, observe, think, and act safely. If an 8th grade curriculum can completely reframe how we handle daily hazards, imagine how applying this simple mindset could change the way we navigate risks in our own adult workplaces and relationships. Thanks so much for joining me in this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.